Good morning, one and all, and welcome to the best day, the Friday. Brett Erlich, host of the Happy Half Hour. Are you excited for yet another Friday?
I'm so stoked. You might be like, Brett, what are you doing? Did you use a different green screen background today? The answer is no, that's not a green screen background I use all the time. That's an actual room I have. I am in Central California. And it's my mom's birthday last week. I'm here. She's right over there.
Tell her happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Mom. I said no talking.
God. Anyway, okay. Well, we're glad to have you here. Your shot looks surprisingly good for what I imagine is just like a webcam or something.
It is a webcam. There are
not bad.
There's a number of boogie boards covering windows.
Okay, that's cool.
And when the cloud cover,
when the zombies attack the beach.
Exactly. Yeah. There's like this it was all so white that this is literally like a piece of dish towel in the back to kind of break up the color.
So you did some set decoration.
This is normally over there. There's like usually like a very useful thing of paper here, but I just moved things around. And I got this earring put in on this side, coming right out the side of my dome.
Okay.
I'm just now noticing that.
It looks great, I think. Anyway, more importantly, there's a ton of birthday messages coming in for your mom. So be sure to let her know that. In any event, aside from his change of location and his mom's birthday, we also have a lot of news to get through the course of this first hour. We're going to be talking about a big blow up that happened during a gun control hearing. That's nothing but fun. Hypocritical corporations being called out for supposedly supporting Pride Month, but not really when it comes to the money. And presidential vacations. I talked about a lot during Trump's term. We're gonna check in and see how Biden is doing in terms of time off and a lot more besides. If you're watching the full online show, we of course will also be throwing away our garbage people of the week. I have got a garbage person who is not being thrown in there for one reason, but for 4 or 5 distinct reasons, any one of which would be enough to merit it, I think. So I'm very excited for that. Along the way, if you wouldn't mind hitting the like button and sharing the stream, assuming you're on a platform that allows for that. If you want to send us any tweets, comments, super chats, or anything along those lines, we will respond to those as we go. But with all that said, Brett, are you ready to do this thing?
I am overly excited.
Okay, well let's watch a video of a man who is also overly excited with this.
You think we don't have hearts? It's just that when we look at the things that you're doing and you're trying to do to America, we've seen the carnage. I mean, for heaven's sake, let's take example. Democrats control the major cities that have the worst murder rates. That's right. Your ideas have been shown to get people killed.
All those cities where they're at least trying to stop people from having these deadly weapons, but still have violence because America is still a country that's flooded in guns, and many of these cities exist in states or beside states where it's relatively easy to get guns and then bring them in. That is Louis Gohmert. And he is feeling the pressure. For him to blow up in that way, I think clearly the attacks against the right, the attacks that declare that they don't care about what's going on because virtually every one of them has no problem with people tomorrow or next week buying the exact sort of weapons that have been used in these attacks. He is clearly feeling it and he wants to lash out. Unfortunately for him, not everyone can sell rage or fury. Not everyone, when they raise their voice, seems tough, and no, clearly I don't think he has it. Is that as unfair, Brett? Just briefly, I don't think he can sell it personally.
Is it fair to call Louis Gohmert a disingenuous tool spank? It's okay. It's fair to do that. You know, one of the main reasons why it's okay to call him a disingenuous tool spank? It's because he is a disingenuous tool spank. This is a guy who, when Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene were clout chasing outside of some building, and he was Mr. Tagalong because he's just morphed in every possible way to stay in the spotlight. There's some very embarrassing footage of him like trying to get the crowd to listen, and they literally just walk away because he will do any and all things. he and John Kennedy of Louisiana are the two most like, I'm just a local yokel type person, who then I'm sure, much like the Maester of King's Landing in Game of Thrones, when everyone walks out, he does his little dance and gets back to normal.
Exactly,
and then when people are around, he puts an affect so he can survive in the world of politics.
Yeah, I think that's more true for Kennedy than Gohmert. I think that Gohmert is playing it up, but I think he's also deeply ignorant. In any event, I do want to give people a little bit of context. What is it that caused Louis Gohmert to freak out in that way? Well, a hearing was going on over gun control, and Louis Gohmert, in addition to other Republicans, were attacked by Eric Swalwell. We're going to show you a bit of what Swalwell had to say.
19 kids are dead. 19 children are dead. And so to my Republican colleagues, I ask, who are you here for? Are you here for our kids, or are you here for the killers? Jordan, to say we are trying to dramatically change the country, if trying to make sure that no more kids are put in the ground with a Superman coffin means dramatically change the country, guilty. That's why we're here. Kids are going.
So that is why Eric Swalwell is there. And look, you might say maybe he's going too far saying that they're there for the killer, but bear in mind, virtually every one of the Republicans in that room does not want anything to change that has even a chance of stopping these attacks from happening in the future. Because as we've already litigated 1,000 times, talking about but then not providing funding to deal with the mental health crisis in America is not going to stop this. Limiting the doors is not going to stop this. More money for police funding is not going to stop this. At the end of the day, you have to stop them from having the weapons that can kill dozens of kids and terrify an entire squad of cops. And none of them there want to do that. Louis Gohmert does not want to do that. Louis Gohmert would have loved for the shooter to have been on the other side of a door, but he wanted him to have that gun and that ammunition and that magazine, and he doesn't want to do anything to stop it or make it illegal. And so I want to give you a little bit more of Louis Gohmert, and then we'll discuss. Take a look at this.
Cities. We care about people. We care about their lives. And lives have been so trivialized. We care deeply. How dare you? How dare you? You arrogant people attributing murder to those of us that want to do things to stop it. Because we've seen what your ideas do. They create more murder.
Okay, so if you're going to say, how dare you attribute to us murder, you undercut your argument, I guess, a little bit by before that and immediately after that saying that it's their ideas that have done the murder. Okay, well, look, that might seem as if it's like a flaw in his logic or something. No, it's designed to just kick up a little bit of like mud, make it so that nobody can really tell exact. Everybody's saying everybody's responsible for murder. So I guess, Brett, how are we supposed to know who is responsible? Well, I will remind you, Louis Gohmert does not want to change any of these laws. He's not interested in doing literally any of that. He instead will turn around and say the people who are trying to make it harder to get these weapons, those are the ones that somehow perversely are responsible for murder.
And let's look at what each side is doing to protect kids, right? When the Democrats are trying to, as flaccidly as they push for anything, but the Democrats are trying to protect kids from getting massacred in a classroom. And to do that, they're trying to prevent a psychopath from being able to buy a gun. And they're trying to kind of essentially at least move up the age for the minimum age for being able to buy a weapon of killing, right? Which I'm for. Maybe put it on par with buying a glass of alcohol. But let's look at, and the right's protecting kids from like knowing what gay people are. There was a country music star who's out, and her kid is going to has to do a project in school, and in that project, it's to talk about your family, and she couldn't do it because her family is gay. And that's the big movement of protection. And Louis Gohmert later in that speech talks about the crocodile tears of Democrats. Crocodile tears is when you disingenuously pretend to cry and then don't really empathize with the people who are victims. That's what the right's doing right now. It's all, Ted Cruz is the worst. My prayers are with all of you. It's really breaks my heart. Fine, what you gonna do about it? Nothing.
Nothing.
And then the left's like, how about we just keep the people who use guns to kill who show signs that they might use guns to kill human beings from doing that? How about we just if we want to make America great again, let's bring back the assault weapons ban we used to have.
Mm-hmm.
Why wouldn't we do something like that? I do want to make America great again. And I do want to protect children. I want to protect them from being gunned down. They want to protect them from what? Queer eye for the straight guy.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, their heart breaks. They worry about lives have been trivialized. Talk about Disney some more. Seriously, spend another month talking about Disney. And you're talking about lives being trivialized.
In that same speech, Louis Gohmert says this, and I think technically Eric Swalwell blasphemed. I'm not talking dumb enough.
No, that was Biden. Biden took the Lord's name in vain.
Blasphemed because he said, "Oh God," and he's like parses it out. The biggest blasphemers are people on the right wing who are lying about what party their savior would have voted for. Yeah. These are the schmucks that take over the temple and turn it into a den of thieves where Jesus walks in and be like, what about the loving each other thing? Worse, I'll double down. People on the right are saying that God screws up all the time. Mm-hmm. That he creates this many gay people. They're calling God fallible. That's blasphemy. Your big creator guy, in your own opinion, sucks by your own logic.
I feel like you're blaspheming, so I would be careful about that.
No,
in any event,
I talk to Jesus every morning. He sends me these awesome hang in there like corporate art photos, like of the kitten, because obviously he would. He sends me like really cool memes.
This is
like that,
and
then he tells me that the right is lying about his language.
That is definitely true, and as credible as any claim to understand the will of the creator of all that is real. We're gonna move away from the Louis Gohmert a little bit. That's as much as I can take of Louis Gohmert. Let's jump into this.
Guns. They think that the answer is fewer guns. And that is what is creating a lot of discomfort among our fellow Americans who cherish their guns and cherish their Second Amendment rights and have actually committed no crimes.
They cherish their children, Mr. Gates?
You know what? Their children aren't the ones at risk as a consequence of law-abiding gun owners.
All children in America are at risk.
That's what you get wrong. It's not law-abiding gun owners, David.
Were those children in Uvalde at risk?
Here's the tension.
Okay, again, none of these arguments make any sense because they don't have to make sense. The right likes the status quo. They believe they can run out the clock. You don't have to make persuasive arguments when you've already won in terms of the system, the status quo. The idea that because some people don't do mass shootings with guns means that they should thus, by their very nature, be legal does not convince most Republicans, maybe Matt Gaetz, I don't know, he likes to party. The idea that a lot of people who do drugs don't commit any other crimes doesn't convince the right that all drugs should thus be legal. And of course, drugs are inherently more dangerous from their point of view because you can take a bag of weed, go into a school, and dozens of people will die. Now, this is the ridiculous, none of this makes any sense. American politics doesn't make any sense. But this is the context, Brett. People like Matt Gaetz and Louis Gohmert and all the other videos we've shown over the days and the weeks in which we're supposed to expect that something will be done. Biden gave a speech last night calling for specific things to be done, including an assault weapons ban. Privately, though, according to Axios, White House officials are bearish that Congress will pass anything substantial to limit guns. So, hey, look, they can occasionally read the room. They're as pessimistic as us, at least in private. Biden did try to project a bit of strength or a moral imperative to do something. I know that because he said the word enough 11 times during his address. He just said it over and over and over again. You think that's probably enough though? That's probably gonna do it.
I'll match your literary repetition with a Lear quote instead of enough, 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 enough. Nothing, 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 nothing.
I don't get that reference, but I like it.
That's it. I mean, he's just like nothing, over and over again. Nothing's gonna happen. And because the left wants to run on it. There's a clip of Kirsten Gillibrand played on this show where she says, take all that anger and put Democrats in power. Like, I just looked at the scoreboard. You have all of it, except in the Supreme Court, because you suck at getting it and keeping it. Yeah, that's it. That's true. So use it now. I'm not. I'm against abolishing the filibuster. I'm for reestablishing the filibuster. I'm for changing the rules of the Senate so that there is no time limit on being in session. So you would then make it like baseball and not like basketball. In basketball, you run out the clock. In baseball, the players determine when the game ends. So make them earn it. Get all those at bats. You guys want to filibuster and tell me all the reasons you want kids to die? I'll give you unlimited time to do that. Go for it. Because to bring it back to Matt Gaetz, there is American exceptionalism. Every other country doesn't have this problem except us. We're the only ones. All the solutions that they're saying are all the things they're saying are the reason the kids get killed. That doesn't apply to other countries. There are gun-free zones in other countries, Matthew. It's him that's saying that we're different in a bad way.
Exactly. Yeah. Unfortunately, the fact that they will say the exact same things following this shooting as they have all others, and the things that they will point to as being responsible, just they like logically cannot be responsible, because as you point out, every other country that doesn't have shootings has those things. It doesn't matter though, because America has the unique distinction of being the worst deliberative, like democracy ever. Nothing needs to make any sense. Nothing needs to be true. You can make insane claims and you will never have to answer for them as an elected representative or a media figure with an audience in the millions. You can just say whatever you want, anything goes. Which is why Joe Biden, who does this speech where he's just like, hey, like too many kids are dying, let's not have that happen anymore, immediately gets attacked by not only Matt Gaetz and everything, but Marjorie Greene tweeted, Joe Biden wants to ban assault weapons and high capacity magazines, yet Democrats refuse to prosecute violent crimes in Democrat cities all over the country. I don't think that that's true. And refuse to protect your children at school with armed security. Tons of schools have armed security. That doesn't stop these shootings. Same Democrats are protected by armed guards daily. We talked about, she spends tons of money on defense. Again, and by the way, I don't understand why that is supposed to be a convincing thing, that like in theory, Joe Biden would have an armed guard to protect against presidential assassins. Ergo, every chem class needs to have an armed guard. How does that make any sense?
I love this. I love these new laws that are saying that teachers should be armed. This is obviously the brainchild of someone who has never ever talked to a teacher, because I know you're gonna hate this joke, but like, if you talk to a teacher, no one has ever wanted to shoot a kid in the face more than literally every teacher, because kids are annoying.
Granted. Anyway, really fast. Ted Cruz called the speech, tonight Biden chose to double down on hard left divisive politics. The hard left politics of the assault weapons ban that we had under centrist triangulating Bill Clinton. That's hard left politics. And Lindsey Graham, friends with Biden for decades, says, I stand ready to vote on all the proposals mentioned by President Biden tonight and encourage the Democratic leader to bring them forward for votes. Now, if you're not familiar with him and where he stands on this, he's not ready to vote in favor of them, by the way. He's ready to vote down all of this. And let's have another day or two of debate about this as, 2 women are shot and killed in a church in Iowa. There's another shooting in Milwaukee. Someone sprayed cars with bullets. They're just shooting everyone everywhere. But how dare you say we don't have a heart as we try to stop literally anything from being done?
To bring it back to Ted Cruz, the only thing more popular in this country than people saying we need to change gun laws to protect more people is the sentiment that we should ban Ted Cruz from saying the word hard. Because that was disgusting.
Granted, I will agree with you there. Okay, we've got a lot of stuff to get through the course of the show. So we're gonna jump into our first break. We come back though, supposedly stuff might happen in the Senate soon. We'll break it down after this. Okay, everybody, let's. Someone is putting a football out, and it's. I think I'm gonna run towards it. Let's jump into this topic. They would have you believe in the media and in our Senate that maybe an energy bill is still coming. Axios had the scoop. Manchin's bipartisan energy talks have now crumbled, which leads the way for a Democrat-only deal via reconciliation. Apparently, yes, those bipartisan talks had totally been happening and were totally serious. Those are now over. Republican senators are now convinced that Manchin is close to some sort of deal with Chuck Schumer. Senator Kevin Cramer said these talks had been a long shot to begin with. Manchin informed us in the last meeting that reconciliation is probably the route he's going down. We do not have any meetings scheduled that I know of, not at this point. So something could happen on energy, but not just on energy. Apparently, Chuck Schumer is attempting to get Manchin on board with both climate change and lower prescription drug price proposals, but GOP lawmakers are trying to divert his attention towards bipartisan negotiations on gun control and energy legislation, literally to keep him out of Chuck Schumer's office. Now, the fact that this is their strategy is being reported, so if Manchin cared that he was being manipulated, then he would know that and could ward it off. I love that the strategy is to waste his time with more bipartisan negotiations that won't go anywhere. All of this is admitting so much about the nonsense that is our Senate, but we're just supposed to watch it because we have no power, no influence, Brett. We're supposed to just watch this and be like, I hope they do something. What do you think?
Depending on Manchin to show any skill in negotiating an energy policy is like depending on Willy Wonka to help negotiate the Less Candy initiative. Like the guy owns coal plants. The guy's not gonna clean up the air. He has no incentive to do anything. He has every incentive to just like dumb stumble around the Senate being like, oh my God, I can't believe that disintegrated. And he's already signaled that he doesn't care what party he's in. He just wants to stay elected. And this is it's so crazy too when you think about it, because he's just sat out an entire realignment with his policies. So there's still some pockets of America where like people are Democrats. People like John Kennedy even switched at a certain point. Like John Kennedy, the guy from Louisiana who's just like, oh my God, I can't believe it. He was a Democrat because you just still had to be one because people were still alive who were voting for Democrats because Lincoln freed the slaves and he was a Republican. But Joe Manchin has sat out from that realignment for so long that it might come back around and he'll finally switch to being a Republican. It's nuts. In this next realignment, it finally might get him. But for energy initiatives, like he has no incentive to allow anyone to do anything.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I mean, look, my only hope, like I'm trying to come up with a way to motivate myself to be enthusiastic about this or to believe that something could happen. Like let's say he's negotiating in good faith on the energy bill. Maybe they just put something in there that gives him a bunch of money. Maybe that does it. Like maybe he finds a way to make money off of this. Now that will, along with that will come much less actual progress in the other direction. I would be perfectly fine with outlaw all coal mines except his. Give him a monopoly over the whole thing, make him rich, or just buy it from him. Have the US government nationalize his coal plant for $5 billion or something. I wish we could have something like that so that we could move on as a society. But unfortunately, he's still negotiating. So best case scenario, we get a bad bill. More likely scenario, this was a waste of our time to even talk about.
Yeah, but the way that you just outlined how politics work. Like it's sad that politics works this way, but there's a bunch of stuff on the ground and there's a lot of bluster, right? You need the stuff on the ground to get people to redirect their bluster in a way where they don't feel like they're losing face and they can also be forced into acting a certain way. So I'm with you. I don't care what it takes. We just have to, and also there's undeniable facts like there are people who work in coal plants. And so we need to pave a way for them to, in line with what we've done with companies like Tesla, you weird right wingers, where we incentivize companies through government grants and investment to make moves toward a more energy independent and also green energy future. And we can do that with Joe Manchin if we can make him do it by making it pretty and financially lucrative to him, sadly, then we have to. And I don't know if anyone's doing that because, again, another motivating factor is using stuff on the election, on the campaign trail to get votes. I just think that the headwind in that respect is public sentiment going against any hope that there will be any movement toward what people actually want their government to do.
And we have to remember that even in theory, let's say they find something that's going to get Manchin over. Well, I'm sure Sinema will just go along with all this. She won't then step to the plate to derail the whole thing.
I mean,
it is frustrating.
It won't matter if he goes where he goes, she goes. That's the actual conversation happening because right now it's 50-50. And if you get Manchin on your side, Sinema can go, do whatever paper doll cosplay she wants to do.
Yeah, I'm saying she can potentially derail the entire thing, even if Manchin were to go along with it.
How? Oh, because it just takes one.
Not vote. Yeah, one defection would be, right. and we're focusing on those two. In theory, there could be others too.
And they'll work behind the scenes. Sorry, I got my math wrong.
Yeah, well, anyway, look, he's also Manchin's pretending that now he wants legislation to lower prescription drug prices. He's like, I'm the one who's pushing for this, as Ilhan Omar points out. He killed the bill that would have done that.
Let's just call it a Manchin bill without him.
No, seriously, let's call it the Joe Manchin lowering your drug prices bill, whatever. These people are all awful. They're just balls of coal and ego. Just give them whatever they want. God, trying to get literally anything done in this country is impossible. Why don't we jump into our next section, starting with this video.
Hi, gay. Happy Pride Month. We are sashaying away with deals. This month at the Butter Shop, we're running a special deal. If you can prove that you're queer, you get 3 pints off your choice of creamed, chucked, or drowned butter. And if you do mouth stuff, you get 4. We love gay, and it's awesome. So come visit. And we also make candles now. Wouldn't a candle be nice for gay stuff? In the bedroom or just hanging out. Yeah, we wouldn't. Wouldn't your partner want butter from the original old maid's home? We've been making butter since 1945, and we've been accepting all people since the last 4 months. So yeah, we're gagging for you to come take a taste of Cecily's Butter Shop at Cecily's Butter Shop.
Oh my God, I hadn't seen the whole thing before. That was amazing. Obviously mocking the corporations who are suddenly like so happy to pretend briefly to accept people so that they can get some of their money and then go back to actively undermining those people's rights. I see some in the chats like the new Cecily Strong. Well, first of all, Cecily Strong is still around. But yes, that was very good. I can imagine Cecily doing that. Look, this is gonna be a conversation about that exact hypocrisy, about what corporations imply they're gonna do, and then how they actually spend their money. We're gonna dive into the results of an investigation by Popular Information. But first, Brett, I wanted to give you a chance to weigh in.
I never know. First of all, my pet peeve is to say like this is just like that other comedian. It breaks my heart.
I know you hate that. I just was acknowledging that it did feel. I like that.
Yeah,
that's a compliment. I think
she's great on in Hacks. By the way, she's fantastic in Hacks. She's one of the funniest parts of it. Anyway, so
no, she was in that.
I never know how to respond in this area because on the one hand, you have successfully pressured companies into putting out, superficially or not, this message to the entire country that it's okay to be gay. You're doing that. Behind the scenes, they are, as you'll show now, donating huge sums of money to explicitly anti-gay candidates. How do you call them out for the stuff they do wrong without just seeming like, hey, these guys can never get it right and I can never be happy? Kind of reputation. That's balance. I always find it hard to strike.
Sure. Yeah, I think a lot of the things that these corporations would do would be awkward and cringy and exploitative, and people still wouldn't like that. But I think it would bother people a little bit less if the corporations weren't also actively undermining people's rights and stuff.
I like the meme that's like, great, now do X. Like, great, now now stop donating to those people who are anti-LGBTQ.
I agree. By the way, people have clarified that was satire.
Yeah,
the awkwardness was on purpose. It was criticizing those corporations. The fact that some people didn't even read it as satire, they thought it was serious, I think makes it pretty damn good satire. But anyway, let's get into what popular information. Judd Legum, who's been on our program multiple times, as well as some co-authors, did a look at major corporations who are eager to communicate that they're allies of the LGBTQ community, sometimes year-round, more frequently just in advance of and during Pride. So they're doing the rainbows and they're sponsoring pride parades and all that. But they found that 25 major corporations have donated more than $13 million just since the start of last year to anti-LGBTQ politicians. So they provide some examples. Last June, AT&T tweeted, "We can turn up the love for LGBTQ plus youth together." They say that they recognize, embrace, and stand with LGBTQ plus people. I don't know, maybe they think one of those letters stands for homophobe because that's where their funding is going. They've given more than $1 million, so an outsized amount of donations from just AT&T. Toyota donated 600,000 since 2019 to anti-LGBTQ politicians. They gave Greg Abbott 400 grand. That is crazy, and like you can see, Judd Legum has awesome tweets which you can go to. We don't have time to dive into all of them, but pointing out the AT&T $50,000 to Ron DeSantis, $100K to Greg Abbott. You've got this breakdown here of Spectrum giving $1.2 million, Comcast and Amazon and Home Depot and Deloitte and all that. And Deloitte contributed $2,000 to Florida state senators, so they're getting in at the ground floor there. But it's not super surprising, I suppose. We know that a lot of these corporations, and Popular Information pointed this out too, that said following the insurrection they would no longer support these politicians. They waited like 3 months or so, and then they're like, I think we can do it now. I would like to have that influence over government again, so here is more money.
They're such octopuses. Corporations are octopi.
Give me more.
Like they're very smart. They're smarter than you think they are. They can be your octopus friend sometimes. You have to strive to be the octopus teacher or whatever. I didn't watch that whole documentary, but they change their colors in this case quite literally to match whatever will help them survive the most.
Yeah. 100%.
It's very frustrating. And then you see that octopus who squeezed through a tiny hole to get out of a ship. Like they do that as long as their beak can squeeze through the hole, and that's their maw gobbling profits. They will do it. They can and will change their colors to survive. And so this is an attempt, calling them out is an attempt to say, cool, you realize it's not just about a rainbow logo. Thank you though for thinking it is, at least your heart's in the right place. But in the same way that we pressured you in a way that you couldn't avoid to change your logo, we now need to change where your political contributions are going.
Yeah, I think you're giving them even more credit than I would in terms of their heart being in the right place. I mean, maybe for some of them, their heart, the execs or whatever, the ad people. But I think you were onto it with the camouflage. They think, oh, in the background, I guess there's some rainbowy stuff. So all of a sudden they're covered by rainbow. It's like a defense mechanism, basically. But they're actively funding politicians who are doing terrible things. And I want to go to this last graphic for here because like just giving the money to Republicans is bad enough. But I want to be clear, this money goes to people who don't just have the wrong position, they're doing terrible things. So in this list, and you should go to Popular Information to get the full list of the donations, but money donated by corporations and corporate PACs to state legislators who sponsored anti-LGBTQ legislation that was signed into law. This is not hypothetical. They sponsored the legislation, it is now law, and they've been rewarded by these corporations. Money dominated by corporations, corporate PACs to the governors who signed anti-LGBTQ legislation into law. And there was money donated by corporate PACs to the leadership PACs of members of Congress that have received a 0 rating on the latest congressional scorecard produced by Human Rights. So this is not just like, oh, they're generally bad people. These are people who are doing these things. They're passing laws like the Don't Say Gay bill. They're targeting trans youth in these states. They're making these things happen, and they're being rewarded by these corporations. Any final thoughts?
No, it's kind of sickening. I don't remember. I was listening to Jordan do a deep dive last night as I was driving, and there's a tweet. I think he talked about this. There's a tweet from the Marines where it's a camouflage hat and a band with bullets, and they changed the bullets. Each one is a different rainbow color.
It's just, that's gotta be parody.
And the corporate stuff is just, for me, neoliberalism turns into such a nebulous term the more people use it. But this is neoliberalism in a nutshell. It's like when it comes to financial stuff, free markets, you do whatever, get me the lowest tax rate and let me ruin entire economies, neighborhoods, whatever I need to do to make a profit. But I'm gonna have a cool little banner saying I like gay people. And that's the problem. And that's like centrist establishment politics in a nutshell. They aren't going to change the stuff that actually makes your life better. Like my frustration is when people say, listen, the Democrats give out all this free stuff. No, Republicans and centrist Democrats give out the free stuff. And by that, I mean totally worthless crap, like hate of gay people, or in terms of what a corporation does. They're not gonna do anything that costs them any money. They'll give you stuff if it's free, and it's free because you already have someone running your social media team. You just change the color on your logo. That's free as hell. That's the free stuff that they give to everybody, and I hate it.
Agreed. Okay, with that said, we're gonna take the last break of this first hour, come back, check in. We have been saying for a while that Biden isn't doing anything. It turns out he's been doing a few things. We're gonna dive into it after this. Please make that, but with banjo accompaniment. I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Kids in the Hall.
Okay. I don't get those because I haven't seen much of it. I think I saw the one where the guy jumps out of the window. I think. Is that Kids in the Hall?
Sounds about right.
I don't know. Anyway, with that said, we've got important stuff to get to, so let's jump into this. You might recall during the Trump years, a lot of focus on the fact that Donald Trump seemed to be most interested of all of the things he can do as president in going and playing golf, going to his own properties and just spending time there, dispensing with the whole governing thing. And he did that a lot, and we criticized him for it. And thus, it might now be time to criticize Joe Biden, because apparently he's also been taking quite a bit of vacation in the limited time that he's had as president so far. Here's an analysis, admittedly by the Daily Mail, but of these trips, comparing different presidents across time. So you have there in the first 500 days in office, they have different locations that he's visited, how many days he's been, for instance, at Camp David, which admittedly Camp David is not, it's not Mar-a-Lago. It's a little bit more official than that, but they're counting that as a vacation day, I guess. They're calculating 188 vacation days. I'm going to guess that that is a bit of an overestimate, but it is still not 30. It's not 60. Anyway, they have Donald Trump as having 381 days in one term. They're projecting that Biden will have 188 at the same time. And it looks like Obama had 328 days over 2 terms. Biden has said of spending time in the White House, it's a gilded cage. He says, every time I get a chance, I go home to Delaware. You think I'm joking? I'm not. So he's taking time off too. It is not the same amount as Trump, and it is possible they're actually working vacations in a way that Donald Trump's clearly were not. But Brett, what do you make of this?
It's no surprise that Joe Biden's first term has been spent so much on vacation, because when a lot of us voted for him, it was our last resort.
Okay, moving on to our next topic.
Red skeleton joke.
Thank you. Yes, and look, I'm mad, but I also know that when he's in DC, he's not doing much. So I don't know how much more mad I should be. Like when he goes away and does nothing at Camp David rather than do nothing in the Oval Office. I'm a little bit more mad. I am, but both are bad.
It's
anyway,
like
people really like that joke. I don't like that they're encouraging you.
I feel like I'll tell more during the next break. I feel like a parent, like a concerned parent who is like, listen, I don't like where you are, but at least I know you're safe. Like, I'm glad you called. It's like when they call you from like some other state, you're just like, well, I'm not happy, but at least I know where you're at now. You shouldn't have lied to me and told me you were gonna forgive student debt. But at least I know that you're someplace, you're not at home tonight, but at least thank you for calling me when you were there.
Yeah. Anyway, really fast, George W. Bush took 1,020 vacation days over 8 years, mostly spending time on his ranch in Texas. That is more vacation than most people will get in their entire lives in a working class job. It
depends on what they're doing. I don't think they're actually explicitly vacation days. Like, is it work from home days?
It is probably a mix, but
in that case,
don't
I've
think
taken
they went there
600 vacation days in a row, John.
No, but okay. So here, maybe I'm wrong. When George W. Bush would go to, what was the name of his ranch?
Don't tell the original one. What the name of it? N-word Head Ranch?
No, not that. Wasn't that
Rick's,
what's his face?
That's Rick.
It was Rick Perry. Anyway, when he would go there, did he go there because he knew he could accomplish as much or more than he could in the White House?
I'd argue he could accomplish at the time. It depends. No, you could probably accomplish more by being in the White House. You have people come in, you do things, obviously. Also, it's your house too. That's
You're
also
already
your home.
Vacationing.
So all these people who are like, "Well, I do better work from home." You live in the White House. It's just a longer walk from like your bathroom to your office.
Yeah, and my issue, exactly. My issue isn't that it's 188 days rather than 160 days. It's that it is a lot of trips and stuff, and it's not like he goes back to Delaware every time he has a major win as a treat. Like, what is he accomplishing? Fine, if you're just as effective there, that's cool. But I'm gonna need to see you accomplish something. If you don't accomplish anything, then best case scenario, it's because you're vacationing so much. Like, that's actually being charitable at that point to assume that.
There's a difference between being just as effective in DC as you would be in Delaware and being effective at all.
That's true. That's true.
Zero can be the same as zero, no matter where it is, you know?
That's true. And look, some people are pointing out very rightly that there's also the concern, and we alluded to this, but that Trump was going in many cases to literally his own businesses that then money would have to be spent by the government, by the taxpayers that go to his businesses. And I get it, that's true. This is not the exact same thing as with Trump, but he is taking a lot of time off. I want to be consistent because I'm stupid. There's no reason to be, there's no benefit to it, but I feel like I should be. So I'm gonna be consistent about the vacationing. It's not the exact same thing. We're adding the context, but
oh yeah, 100%. I agree with that. Like, there's a huge difference between going to Delaware, which is like close, or Camp David or something, and going to your own business and essentially stealing taxpayer money and giving it back to yourself. Huge difference.
Now, really fast, I do want to just mention something that's up on CNN. It is an analysis talking with the people who basically manage the PR and social media for Biden. Them saying that they've got this deep dysfunction among White House aides. They said there's 70 people on staff to help create digital content and manage the social media accounts for the president, which, yeah, there's a lot that needs to be done. That staff needs a certain number of people. 70 seems a lot, and but maybe it takes so many people to find stuff to talk about and be enthusiastic about when the president isn't really producing the best raw content for you to then work with. Anyway, they give you a lot of information about how he functions. That they focus on local newspaper coverage of his speeches more so than on social media, like conversations about it and all that. They say that the president is still trying to calibrate himself to the office. They were gonna do this thing where they did monthly town halls, but then they thought maybe that was outdated. Again, All of this stuff is fine. You can do all of this stuff, but at the end of the day, your communication is only so good as the stuff you have done to communicate. And I wish there was more of a focus on actually like racking up W's that you could then go to a press conference to talk about. Focus on the first part.
I agree.
Final thoughts?
Nope. Yeah. It's just I was looking at the presidential Twitter handle, and it's fine. It's not great, but it's just as bland and copy pasted from his speeches as you could expect.
Sure. By the way, we talked on the pre-show for TDR today about Ben Shapiro losing his mind over BTS going to the White House. That was a PR win for them. His, I think it was on Instagram. His videos generally get the presidents usually get about like 700,000, 1 million views. The BTS one had 51 million views.
Yeah. Waz put this well the other day where he was just like, and then also can we, please actually pass some policies that help people
do something
as opposed to
I want policies, but like what if like Taylor Swift went there?
I'd be fine with that. Taylor Swift is most of my policy. So
exactly. Let's jump into one more topic to close out this first hour. Ever since back on the 3rd of May, the SCOTUS decision that appeared to indicate that they're going to get rid of Roe v. Wade was leaked. There's been a lot of discussion and conversation about reproductive rights in America. And it turns out that conversation is having an effect. I want to show you a fascinating poll. Now, this goes way back to the 1970s, but if you can bring this up, you can see what do people think merits abortion being legal? What is the threshold? This is from 1972 up to recently. And you can see that over, I guess, maybe it's the past few years, the percent who say because a woman wants it for any reason has really been going up. I mean, if you go back to the 70s and 80s, that was in the 30s to 40s. It's now up to 57% say a woman should be able to obtain a legal abortion if she wants it for literally any reason. The higher threshold, the fact that there are people who think she should have to demonstrate that she can't afford it, or the person should have to demonstrate that they can't afford it, seems ridiculous. And then above that, you have a few of these other thresholds that often get talked about health, rape, incest, those sorts of things. But you are seeing a lot of movement there in those lower categories, Brett.
Yes, absolutely. There is movement in the right direction. I feel like this makes it even more frustrating, though, that women's right to choose, people who are giving birth don't have control over what that process entails, and rather the party that says it's all about freedoms is like, no, please run it by me whether you want to have control over your own body. We have to say it's okay after we, check with our messaging on various issues. And really, this is only a cudgel to get religious people to go along with blood-sucking entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Be like, come with us so we can give ourselves tax breaks. We definitely need more people than the super rich, because that doesn't really build out an entire tent.
No.
So please, you're gonna kill babies if you don't come along with us. But even then, people, 60% of America says if she wants to terminate pregnancy, then that can happen.
Yeah, I know. Like, I overall, my takeaway is moving in the right direction. I like it, even though the country is moving in the opposite direction. And I get that there's people come at these sorts of questions from a lot of different points of view. Like it's often talked about from the point of view of religion, but not everybody's decision is based off religion. So many of these positions just make absolutely no sense to me. Like the idea that if you can afford it or not should be what determines if it's legal. What the hell are you talking about? I understand pragmatically why there's a focus, for instance, on like rape or incest, but philosophically, this is all nonsense to me. Like this is just, I think people have landed on things. There's a lot of discomfort. And so I think people land on positions that they think are relatively more comfortable, but they don't make logical sense.
Correct.
From the point of view of, none of this does. Like,
correct. It's the 1,000 pounds of candy versus do you want a stomach ache or not? You need to know how to message correctly to get the outcome you want, because you can't have both happen.
Yeah. Exactly. In any event, that is unfortunately all the time we have for our first hour. So if you are listening to the podcast, first of all, thank you. If you've been enjoying the podcast, please rate and review it on Apple Podcasts. That really helps us with discoverability. If you're on one of our linear platforms as well, thank you so much for watching as always. That said, if you are on Twitch or YouTube or the Members app or a ton of other platforms, we've got more show including the throwing away of the garbage people of the week. You're not gonna wanna miss it. Brett and I are gonna take a couple minute break, but don't go anywhere because there's more coming up after this.
Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Damage Report. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, John Adarola. I'll see you soon.